The silence that shook the galaxy. The transmission ended with static. 8 million voices silenced in an instant. Director Elena Vasquez stared at the empty screen where Kepler Station had been broadcasting just moments before. The research colony had been humanity's crown jewel, a peaceful settlement dedicated to advancing medical technology that had saved countless lives across dozens of species. Now it was nothing but superheated plasma and debris. High Chancellor Krex of the Zephyrian Dominion had made his point clear. The massive reptilian leader had announced the strike himself, his scaled features cold and calculating as he delivered his ultimatum to the galaxy. Humanity had been warned about establishing colonies in disputed sectors. They had chosen to ignore Zephyrian territorial claims. The consequences were absolute. Elena's hands trembled as she processed the magnitude of the loss. Kepler Station wasn't just a colony. It housed the galaxy's most advanced medical research facilities, schools for children from 17 different species, and cultural exchange centers that had fostered peace between dozens of civilizations. The Zephyrians had just murdered 8 million innocent beings to make a political statement. Within hours, the galactic community's response began flooding in. The ethereal collective sent formal condolences expressing deep regret for this unfortunate incident. The Merchant Guild imposed trade restrictions that would barely impact Zephyrian commerce. The Peaceful Union organized prayer ceremonies across their worlds. Ambassador Thylos of the Crystalline Courts delivered the most substantial response, calling for an emergency session of the Galactic Council to discuss appropriate measures. Elena watched these hollow gestures with growing fury. Appropriate measures, deep regret, unfortunate incident. 8 million people had been vaporized, and the galaxy's response was bureaucratic hand-wringing and meaningless ceremonies. The Zephyrians had calculated correctly. No one would risk real confrontation with their military might over one human colony. Captain Marcus Chen burst into Elena's office without ceremony. His usually perfect uniform was disheveled, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Marcus commanded the Human Defense Fleet's Rapid Response Division, and Elena had never seen him look so shaken. Director, we're receiving confirmation from 17 sectors. Every human outpost, colony, and research station is reporting the same thing. Complete communications blackout from Kepler. No survivors detected. No escape pods. Nothing. Elena nodded grimly. She had expected as much. The Zephyrians didn't leave survivors when they wanted to send messages. What's the status of our fleet response? Marcus hesitated, his jaw clenching. That's what I need to discuss with you. Admiral Torres has issued classified orders to all human vessels. We're not retaliating. What do you mean we're not retaliating? Elena's voice rose sharply. All human ships are being recalled to Sol System immediately. Every colony is being evacuated under emergency protocols. All trade agreements are being suspended. All diplomatic missions are being terminated. We're pulling back from everything. Elena stared at him in disbelief. That's surrender. That's exactly what Krex wants. He destroys one of our worlds, and we abandon all of them. I don't understand it either, Marcus admitted. But the orders come directly from Earth Command. Priority Alpha classification. Every human in the galaxy is being brought home. The evacuation began within hours. Human vessels materialized at every colony, station, and outpost simultaneously. Families were given minutes to pack essential belongings. Research projects spanning decades were abandoned. Trade agreements worth trillions of credits were dissolved without explanation. The entire human presence in the galaxy simply started vanishing. Ambassador Thylos watched the exodus with growing unease. The crystalline being had worked with humans for over 30 years, establishing trade routes and cultural exchanges that had enriched both their civilizations. He had never seen anything like this systematic withdrawal. "It doesn't fit their nature," he confided to his aide during a private communication. "Humans respond to aggression with defiance. They negotiate through strength. This silent retreat is completely unprecedented." Other species began reporting similar observations. The Andromedan Collective noted that human merchants who had operated in their space for generations simply failed to appear at scheduled trade meetings. The Void Runners, a nomadic species that relied on human-manufactured medical supplies, found their orders cancelled without explanation. Even the Zephyrians noticed the sudden absence of human diplomatic protests and media outcry. High Chancellor Krex initially celebrated the human withdrawal as proof of his dominion's superiority, one demonstration of real power, and the mammals scurry back to their hole, he declared to his war council. Perhaps now they'll remember their place in the galactic order. But as days turned to weeks, even Krex began to feel unsettled by the completeness of humanity's disappearance. His intelligence networks reported the same impossible information from every sector. There were no humans to monitor. They had vanished as thoroughly as if they had never existed. The first signs that something was wrong came from the outer rim. Territories. A Zephyrian patrol reported finding an abandoned human research station in the Veil Nebula completely stripped of all equipment and personnel. The station's reactor had been cleanly shut down, its computers wiped, its supplies removed. It was as if the humans had simply evaporated. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human colonies that had existed for decades were found empty but undamaged. Mining operations that had run for generations sat silent with all equipment removed. Even small trading posts in remote sectors had been evacuated so thoroughly that no trace of human presence remained. Dr. Zephyr of the Ethereal Collective's Xenology Department published a disturbing analysis 3 weeks after Kepler Station's destruction. The systematic nature of this withdrawal suggests long-term preparation. You cannot relocate entire populations and industrial bases overnight without extensive planning. The humans were ready for this. Ambassador Thylos found this conclusion deeply troubling. He had worked closely with human administrators for decades and knew their decision-making processes. They were careful planners, but they also valued their galactic relationships too highly to abandon them lightly. This complete withdrawal suggested something far more significant than a tactical retreat. Meanwhile, strange phenomena began occurring. Throughout inhabited space, the Merchant Guild reported missing cargo vessels in sectors previously secured by human patrol fleets. The Andromedan Collective lost contact with 3 scientific expeditions investigating abandoned human research sites. Most disturbing of all, the Peaceful Union detected massive energy signatures in deep space between star systems, areas that should have been empty. High Chancellor Krex dismissed these reports as coincidence and natural cosmic phenomena. His military advisors weren't as confident. General Vash, his most experienced commander, requested additional intelligence resources to investigate the human withdrawal. "Something about this doesn't feel right," Vash reported during a closed-door briefing. "Species don't just disappear. They're planning something." "Planning what?" Krex demanded. "They lost 8 million people and ran away with their tails between their legs. What could they possibly be planning that we should fear?" General Vash pulled up holographic displays showing troop movements and resource allocations across space. "Sir, We've had to redeploy significant forces to patrol sectors previously monitored by human fleets. Our intelligence networks in 17 systems have gone dark because they relied on human commercial vessels for communication. Our entire defensive strategy was built around the assumption that humans would continue maintaining their presence in buffer zones between us and hostile neighbors. For the first time since Kepler Station's destruction, Krex felt a flicker of uncertainty. The human withdrawal wasn't just removing a rival, it was creating a strategic vacuum that his own forces were struggling to fill. The truth was far more terrifying than any of the alien species suspected. Deep in the space between stars, humanity was preparing for something that had never been attempted in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Torres stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, flagship of a fleet that officially didn't exist. Around her 3,000 human vessels waited in perfect silence, their crews drawn from every colony, every station, every world that humanity had ever called home. The evacuation had been a cover story. For 18 months, human engineers had been secretly constructing the largest fleet in galactic history using resources supposedly allocated to peaceful colonies. Every research station had been a disguised shipyard. Every mining operation had been feeding materials into a military machine that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Asterisk. Dr. James Park approached the Admiral with a tablet displaying final system diagnostics. All weapons systems are operational. The quantum disruption network is ready for deployment. We can target every major Zephyrian installation simultaneously, Admiral. Torres nodded grimly. The quantum disruption technology was humanity's gift to the galaxy, something no other species had even theorized. It would allow them to strike across impossible distances with perfect coordination. The Zephyrians had taught them that the galaxy respected only strength. Humanity was about to demonstrate strength beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. Signal. All fleet commanders, Torres ordered. Operation Starfall begins in 72 hours. The galaxy wanted to see what happens when you push humanity too far. They're about to learn. In the darkness between stars, humanity prepared to emerge from silence. The storm was coming, and it would reshape the balance of power forever. Asterisk. The storm unleashed. The first strike came without warning. High Chancellor Krex was reviewing intelligence reports in his private chamber when the fortress shields around Zephyr Prime simply ceased to exist. One moment, the capital world was protected by energy barriers that had never been breached in 5,000 years of warfare. The next moment, human warships materialized in the planet's upper atmosphere as if they had always been there. General Vash burst into Krex's chamber, his scaled features pale with shock. "Sir, we're under attack. 17 systems simultaneously. They came out of nowhere. Our defenses aren't responding." Krex's blood ran cold as he processed the impossibility of what he was hearing. 17 systems. That's impossible. No fleet can coordinate attacks across that distance. The communication delays alone would make it. His words were cut off as the palace trembled. Through his reinforced windows, Krex could see human vessels, hanging in the sky like dark angels of judgment. They weren't firing yet, but their presence alone was more terrifying than any bombardment. These weren't the patrol ships and research vessels he had grown accustomed to seeing. These were warships built for one purpose: absolute destruction. Admiral Sarah Torres broadcast simultaneously to every Zephyrian military installation in the galaxy. Her image appeared on command screens from the capital world to the furthest military outpost, her voice calm and utterly certain. "I am Admiral Sarah Torres of the Human Liberation Fleet. 18 months ago, your species murdered 8 million innocent people to demonstrate your power. Today, we demonstrate ours. The quantum disruption network activated across dozens of star systems simultaneously. Human fleets that had been hiding in the void between stars materialized at every major Zephyrian installation at exactly the same moment. The coordination was perfect, impossible, and absolutely devastating to Zephyrian morale. Dr. James Park monitored the operation from the Eclipse's tactical center. The quantum disruption technology had exceeded even his most optimistic projections. They were maintaining perfect real-time coordination across distances that should have required hours for communications to traverse. The Zephyrians were facing something that violated their understanding of physics. Phase 1 complete, Park reported to Admiral Torres. All primary targets are secured. Zephyrian military response is minimal. They can't coordinate counterattacks when they don't understand how we're doing this. Torres nodded, but her expression remained grim. Begin Phase 2. Selective strikes on military infrastructure. Civilian populations are not to be harmed. We're not the Zephyrians. What followed was a masterclass in precision warfare. Human forces struck Zephyrian military bases with surgical accuracy, disabling defensive systems while carefully avoiding civilian casualties. Shipyards that had built the vessels that destroyed Kepler Station were reduced to scrap metal. Command centers that had coordinated the attack were left as smoking ruins. But hospitals, schools, and residential areas remained untouched. Ambassador Thylos watched the attacks unfold from his diplomatic vessel in neutral space, his crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated deep disturbance. He had requested an emergency session of the Galactic Council, but events were moving too quickly for diplomatic solutions. The humans aren't just winning, he reported to the Council Assembly. They're demonstrating capabilities that none of our species possess. This quantum coordination technology suggests scientific advances far beyond what we believed possible. The ethereal collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a magnetic field generator, pulsed with agitation. How long have they been preparing this? The level of coordination required suggests decades of secret development. Longer than that, Thylos replied, studying tactical analyses from his military advisors. They've been building this capacity since first contact. Every peaceful research station, every trading post, every cultural exchange program was part of a larger infrastructure. They've been preparing for this possibility from the beginning. High Chancellor Krex's empire crumbled in hours rather than days. As news of simultaneous defeats spread through Zephyrian space, entire sectors began surrendering without resistance. The psychological impact of facing an enemy that could strike anywhere instantly was devastating to morale. General Vash coordinated the retreat from the capital as human forces secured orbital positions around Zephyr Prime. Sir, we need to evacuate. You to the secondary command center in the outer reach. If we can regroup our forces with what forces? Krex interrupted bitterly. They've struck 73 installations simultaneously. Our fleets are scattered or destroyed. Our command structure is gone. How do you fight an enemy that can be everywhere at once? The answer came in the form of another broadcast from Admiral Torres. This time, her message was directed not just at the Zephyrians, but at every species in the galaxy. To the civilizations of the galactic community, Torres began, her image broadcasting from every human ship simultaneously. For generations, humanity has sought peaceful coexistence with our neighbors. We have shared our medical advances, our cultural achievements, and our scientific discoveries freely. In return, we asked only for the right to exist among you as equals. The Admiral paused, her expression hardening. The Zephyrian Dominion chose to answer peaceful coexistence with mass murder. 8 million innocent lives were ended to demonstrate their power over us. Today, we demonstrate that such power is an illusion. Tactical displays throughout the galaxy showed the scope of humanity's response. Zephyrian military capacity had been reduced by 70% in a single coordinated strike. Their ability to project force beyond their own borders had been completely eliminated. We did not seek this war, Torres continued, but we will finish it. The Zephyrian Dominion's capacity for aggression has been permanently neutralized. Their military infrastructure has been dismantled. Their ability to threaten peaceful species has been removed. Dr. Park monitored reactions from across the galaxy as the broadcast continued. Intelligence networks were in chaos as species attempted to analyze what they had witnessed. The implications were staggering. If humans could coordinate attacks across such distances instantly, traditional concepts of space warfare had become obsolete. However, Torres said, her voice taking on a more conciliatory tone, humanity does not seek conquest. We seek justice and security for all peaceful species. To those civilizations who have shown friendship to humanity, our relationship remains unchanged. To those who choose the path of aggression, consider this demonstration carefully. High Chancellor. Krex watched the broadcast from his emergency bunker deep beneath the capital city. Around him, his remaining military commanders waited for orders that he no longer had the resources to give. The humans had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had eliminated a major military power without massive civilian casualties or territorial occupation. What do they want? General Vash asked quietly. If they wanted conquest, they could take our worlds. If they wanted revenge, they could have targeted civilian populations. What are they trying to achieve? The answer came as Admiral Torres concluded her broadcast. The Galactic Council will convene in 30 days to establish new protocols for interspecies relations. Humanity will participate as a founding member of a reformed council with authority to prevent future acts of aggression against peaceful species. The age of might makes right is ending. The age of justice begins now. Ambassador Thylos felt his crystalline matrix resonate with something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Hope mixed with terror. The humans had just proposed a fundamental restructuring of galactic civilization. They weren't seeking to rule through force, but they were making it clear that they had the power to enforce their vision of justice. The response from other species was swift and revealing. The Ethereal Collective immediately announced support for humanity's proposal. The Merchant Guild, recognizing the economic implications of stable interspecies relations, endorsed the Reformed Council. Even species that had remained neutral for millennia began expressing interest in participating in humanity's new galactic order. Dr. Park presented his final analysis to Admiral Torres as human forces consolidated their positions throughout former Zephyrian space. The quantum disruption network has exceeded all projections. We can maintain real-time coordination across the entire galaxy. No hostile force can mass for aggression without our knowledge, and no peaceful species need fear surprise attacks. Torres nodded, but her expression remained thoughtful. The real test isn't military, James. It's whether we can build something better than what came before. Power without wisdom is just tyranny with better weapons. The transformation that followed reshaped galactic civilization. Humanity didn't occupy Zephyrian worlds, but they established monitoring stations that made future aggression impossible. The reformed Galactic Council received unprecedented authority to investigate potential threats and coordinate peaceful responses. Species that had lived in fear of their aggressive neighbors for millennia began exploring new possibilities for cooperation and development. High Chancellor Krex found himself under house arrest on his own world, his empire reduced to a closely monitored collection of demilitarized planets. But rather than execution or exile, he faced something more challenging: accountability. Human administrators worked with Zephyrian civilians to establish new democratic institutions and repair the damage caused by generations of militaristic rule. The memorial for Kepler Station was built not as a monument to human suffering, but as a symbol of the price of aggression and the possibility of justice. Representatives from every galactic species contributed to its construction, and 8 million names were inscribed in the languages of all the victims' peoples. Admiral Torres stood before the completed memorial 6 months after Operation Starfall, surrounded by representatives from dozens of species. The ceremony wasn't about human victory, but about collective commitment to preventing future tragedies. The 8 million who died at Kepler Station didn't die in vain if their sacrifice leads to a galaxy where such violence becomes impossible, Torres said in her dedication speech. Today, we commit not just to remembering them, but to ensuring that their children, and the children of every species, can build futures free from the fear of annihilation. Ambassador Thylos approached Torres after the ceremony, his crystalline form pulsing with patterns of deep respect. Your species has accomplished something remarkable, Admiral. You've demonstrated that the greatest power isn't the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when not to use it. Torres smiled sadly. We learned that lesson at a terrible price. 8 million lives taught us that some powers are too dangerous to be left unchecked. Now it's our responsibility to make sure that lesson isn't forgotten. The galaxy had indeed learned. In the months and years that followed, the threat of human intervention prevented dozens of potential conflicts. The Quantum Disruption Network became the foundation for a galactic early warning system that made surprise attacks impossible. Species that had spent millennia locked in cycles of revenge and retaliation began working together on projects that had once seemed impossibly ambitious. But humanity never forgot the price of peace. Every human ship carried a memorial plaque listing the names of Kepler Station's victims. Every human colony included a peace garden dedicated to their memory. The silent rage that had built humanity's greatest fleet was transformed into vigilant determination to protect all peaceful species. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their capacity to transform tragedy into justice, and their willingness to use overwhelming power in service of lasting peace. The storm had passed, but its lessons echoed through the stars, reminding every species that some prices are too high to pay, and some powers too dangerous to challenge. In the end, the Zephyrians had succeeded in teaching humanity their place in the galactic order, but that place wasn't as subjects or equals. It was as guardians of a peace they had paid for with 8 million lives, and protectors of a justice they would never allow to be forgotten. Asterisk.